I'm going to review how to find articles, and then I'm going to review how to begin choosing a quote from the article, and then I'm going to show you how to do a quote sandwich. And that is going to be how we're going to build the annotated bibliography. And remember, the topic that you choose for your annotated bibliography will also be the topic that we then write a research paper for. So the annotated bibliography is a first step for a research paper. The first thing that you want to do is go to the library. And there are multiple ways to get there. A student in one of my other sections pointed out that you can just go here to library, which I didn't know, which was fantastic because it's a time saver. But right now my browser is blocking it, so I'm going to copy it. Okay, so here I am at the library. I can go to articles and databases, or I can go to database list. I can search for a database here. We're looking for opposing viewpoints. Or I can click on O here for an alphabetical list. Once you find opposing viewpoints in context, click on it. And it brings you to this database. This is a great database to use anytime you have to write about a contemporary issue. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes opposing viewpoints will, they curate or they compile articles that will give you different perspectives on a contemporary topic. So just for the sake of this example, let's look up, let's just use fast fashion. When you first click on a topic, it brings you to this page, and then you go to read more. Of course, my internet is slow today. It gives you background and context on an issue. I suggest using this one as your first article. Remember, you need to have 2 articles on the same topic. The good thing about opposing viewpoints is it actually shows you other articles that are about the same topic, and those usually come up in the sidebar here, or under related subjects, or sometimes if you scroll down, you can see more like this. So those are 3 places to find an additional article. But the first article you have here, I would recommend using it, this main article. Before you even start reading it, it's a good idea to grab the citation. So make sure that from the major assignment page, and I'm just going to go back there, that you have downloaded this annotated bibliography example. Once you have that open, you should save it as your own and customize it. So put in your name instead of mine and update the date. Put the date when it is due. So that would be 18th March 2022. To update the header, you simply double click in it, and then you put your own first name or your own last name, and then you click out of it. I recommend saving it somewhere that you can access it, but I do recommend using this template because it is already set up for you. So I'm going to update the title. I'm not writing about dress codes, I'm writing about fast fashion now. And I also recommend having this under the home menu for Word, having this button checked off. It doesn't print out, but you'll see this button shows you where lines end, where there's a new paragraph. It shows you where spaces are. So any kind of formatting problems you have, it's really helpful to have this turned on because you can see what's going on. So for example, if you have something like this, you can see, oh, I'm missing a paragraph marker. So I recommend having this turned on. Now let's go back to your article. Fast fashion. Go to this Cite button right here. Click on it. It's already selected for MLA. Select it. Copy it. Go back to your Word document. Highlight this. Try not to grab the little paragraph marker, because if you grab the paragraph marker, you're going to have to reformat it. If you don't, usually the formatting comes in by pasting it. You have two options for pasting. You can just do a simple paste, Control V or Command V. But then that comes in like this. The formatting's gone. So what I recommend is going to paste under the home menu, clicking on this little triangle, which means there's submenus, going to keep text only or paste special unformatted text. It just depends on your version of Word what comes up. So I'm clicking on OK. And you'll notice this comes out and it has all the formatting. However, it doesn't come through with the italics. So when you look here, you can see, okay, Gale opposing viewpoints is italicized. Gale in context opposing viewpoints is italicized. So just go back and put those italics back on. You can do Command I on a Mac or Control I on a PC. And these are italicized because these are the containers. In MLA, you always italicize the containers. So these are the larger databases or the larger books where the articles live. The articles are in quotation marks. So before you even read the article, I recommend grabbing the citation and bringing it over here. That way you have it. Then go through and read the article. The good thing about opposing viewpoints is that a lot of these articles are very short, so you can read the whole thing. If you end up finding an article that is really long, say 20 pages, 15 pages, then you don't have to read the whole thing. You can just read the subtitle or the subsection that is important for you. So for example, with fast fashion, I'm concerned about working conditions and environmental concerns for fast fashion. So I might, scroll through and see what's going on with the background of fast fashion, but for the most part, I'm really going to concentrate on this little section here. So just for the sake of showing you, I'm going to choose a section to highlight. And what we're doing when we highlight, we're not highlighting everything. We're slowly starting to take something general, a topic, fast fashion, and we're narrowing it down. We have an article, and we're narrowing it down even more. We're going to highlight, maybe 2-3 sections of the article. So I think this is really interesting. As a countermeasure, the nonprofit group Baptist World Aid Australia began to publish an annual ethical fashion report, which grades clothing manufacturers on their labor and environmental standards in the interests of consumer education. However, problematic manufacturing practices persist, including the use of child labor. So I think this is really important because I think child labor is awful, and that's what I'm going to write about, part of what I'm going to write about. So I'm going to highlight this, and then I'm also interested in the environmental impact of fast fashion. So I'm also going to highlight this here. I'm not sure which ones I want, so I'm going to highlight kind of a lot here. So now I have a couple things highlighted. You may want to highlight another section, but for the purpose of our example, I'm not going to go back to the article as a whole. Now I'm only going to read the highlighted sections. So I've narrowed it down even more. And within these highlighted sections, I'm going to decide which small segment of the highlighted section I'm going to use as an important quote from my annotated bibliography. Here, I think the important part is right here. Problematic manufacturing practices persist, including the use of child labor. Because all of this it doesn't get to the essence of the argument, but right here, this is the essence of the argument. So this is what I'm going to use as a quote. So to get into the quote sandwich, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to bring it over to Word. I'm going to delete everything here because that's what I wrote. That's what my professor wrote, not what I'm going to write. So I'm deleting that. And then I'm going to bring in the quote that I copied. First thing, get in the habit of doing this, just like you put your blinker on to take a left or a right turn. Anytime you bring a quote over, get in the habit of first putting in a quotation mark. And then paste it. If you paste it just like Command V, it's going to come over with this font that you don't want, and it's going to come over with the funky highlighting. So go here, keep text only or unformatted text, and just like you put your blinker on, make sure you close the quote here. Then, just like you put on your brakes when you come to a stop sign or a red light, there's another step that you have to do, and that step is an in-text citation. There's two different types of citations you have. You have this full citation, and then you have your in-text citation, and both of them are important. You need both of them. So to get the in-text citation, you look at the first word or the first couple words in the full citation. If it's an author's last name, you always use the author's last name. Here, we don't have an author's last name. So we're going to use the first two words. The article title, Fast Fashion. To do an in-text citation in MLA, you put a parentheses after the quote, put in the first word or first couple words from the full citation, and then you end the parentheses, and then you put the punctuation from the quote after the citation. So the citation is really a part of this sentence, and it's really an important part. So we have our quote that we got from the highlight, and I'm going to show you how to work with the quote now. So this is the quotation sandwich, and if you don't remember anything from this class except for one thing, it should be the quote sandwich. It's really important. On major assignments, it's here in two places. There's a link in the text, and it's also here as an attachment. So the quote sandwich gives you a model, a template, and this is taken directly from They Say, I Say. So all of those They Say, I Say journals you've been doing, this is where you start to implement those skills. Here are some templates for introducing quotations. And I recommend looking at these, choosing one, and then customizing it to suit your purpose. So the first quote that I have, I feel like I really need to give the reader some background and information. So I'm going to go back to, I think I'm going to write something like this. In her book, blank, X maintains that blank. Couple problems here. We don't have the author's name, so we don't know the gender. We don't have a book, we have an article, so I have to change some things. But in the article, I know that they are talking about child labor that is used by fast fashion companies. So in my top slice of bread, the top slice of bread is the introduction to my quote. I'm going to write something like, let me go back to the quotation sandwich. In the article, in an article about fast fashion from Gail Opposing Viewpoints, so going back to the quotation sandwich, we have in, that's kind of like this, I've customized it. I'm going to say the author, and I'm not going to say maintains, I'm going to say explains that some clothing companies keep their prices low by using child labor. The article states that, and here I'm going to take out this however because it doesn't make any grammatical sense with what I have. So the article states that, quote, problematic manufacturing practices persist, including the use of child labor. So this is my top slice of bread. I've given my readers a little bit of background information, and I've introduced the quote, and this is my filling. So this is the middle of the sandwich, the filling is the quote itself. Now I have to go to the bottom slice of bread. Here are some quotations for the bottom slice. So for this, I'm going to customize it, but I'm going to use this first one. Basically, blank is saying blank. So in your bottom slice of bread, you can do a number of things. One thing that you can do is simply restate what the quote says in your own words. Because your job as a writer, when you're bringing in other resources, is not just to drop the quotation in and expect that your reader will understand it. That's being a lazy writer. Your job as an effective writer is to explain the quote. So anybody, and probably many of you, speak and translate a different language. So if you are translating a different language into English, if you just do a straight translation, it won't make any sense. So as a translator, you have to choose which words you're going to reorder. You have to choose which words make more sense. So in essence, you are acting as a translator of this quote for your reader. So I'm going to use this one. Basically, this passage, I'm going to use this word clarifies that even though attention has been drawn to unfair labor practices, companies still use children to make their clothes. So that is my bottom slice of bread. And in essence, I've made a body paragraph that I can then reuse in major assignment 3 when we get there. But what I've really done is I've done part of the assignment. I have come up with one quote from one article, and I have put it into a quote sandwich. So now I can move on to another quote from the same article. I would go to my next highlighted place, and I would choose another quote. Again, I would choose a small section of this highlight, and then I would sandwich it. So you have to do that 2 times for 2 articles. So you're going to end up with 4 sandwich quotes for 2 articles on the same topic. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to stop recording now, and I'll stop sharing, and then I'll field your questions.